The morning sun poured through the glass walls of the elegant Harbor Crest Hotel in downtown Chicago. Guests rolled their suitcases across the polished marble floor, while employees moved quickly behind the reception desk. Everything looked perfect, but appearances can be deceiving. My name is Marcus Bennett. At 38 years old, I was a single father raising my 8-year-old daughter, Ava. Most people who walked past me had no idea that I owned Harbor Crest Hotel. That was exactly how I preferred it. I didn't drive a flashy sports car. I didn't wear designer suits covered in luxury logos. I didn't travel with assistants following me around. I believed respect should be earned by character, not appearances. That belief was about to be tested. Ava sat beside me in the passenger seat as we drove through the city. "Dad, are we really staying at the hotel today?" she asked. I smiled. "That's the plan. Can we use the swimming pool?" "If your homework is finished." "It is." "You said that yesterday, too." She laughed. I laughed with her. Moments like these made every sacrifice worth it. Being a single parent wasn't easy. After Ava's mother passed away when Ava was only 3 years old, life became a balancing act. Every decision mattered. Every hour counted. I built my business while raising my daughter. There were days when I attended investor meetings in the morning and school events in the afternoon. It wasn't glamorous. It was exhausting, but it was worth it. The hotel wasn't just a business. It was proof that perseverance could overcome almost anything. 5 years earlier, Harbor Crest had been struggling. The building was old. The reviews were terrible. Guests avoided it. Most investors wanted nothing to do with it. I saw something different. I saw potential. I bought the property and spent years rebuilding everything from the ground up. New rooms, new staff, new management systems, new standards. Slowly, the hotel transformed into one of the city's most respected destinations. Yet very few employees knew what I looked like. That was intentional. I preferred operating quietly. My executive team knew me. The general manager knew me. But most frontline employees had never met me. That allowed me to see the true culture of the company. It allowed me to witness how guests were treated when nobody thought the owner was watching. As Ava and I arrived at Harbor Crest, I noticed something unusual. Several luxury vehicles sat outside the entrance. Valets rushed around carrying luggage. The hotel seemed busier than normal. "Looks crowded today," Ava said. "It does." We stepped out of the car. I wore simple jeans, clean sneakers, and a navy polo shirt. Ava wore a yellow dress and carried her favorite backpack. Nothing about us screamed wealth. We looked like an ordinary father and daughter, which, in many ways, we were. The doorman barely glanced at us. His attention remained focused on guests arriving in expensive vehicles. Interesting. Not a great start. We entered the lobby. The atmosphere felt different. A little tense. A little rushed. At the front desk, 3 receptionists assisted guests. One employee immediately smiled at a well-dressed businessman. Another hurried over to help a woman carrying luxury shopping bags. Meanwhile, Ava and I stood quietly waiting. 1 minute passed. Then 2. Then 3. Nobody acknowledged us. Not even a simple greeting. Ava looked up at me. "Dad." "Yes." "I think they forgot us." I smiled. "Maybe." Eventually, a young receptionist named Rachel approached. Her expression suggested she wasn't thrilled to be helping us. "Can I help you?" she asked flatly. I nodded. "Yes. I'd like to check into a suite." She looked me up and down. Then she glanced at Ava. Then back at me. Something in her expression changed. Not friendliness. Judgment. "What type of suite?" she asked. "The presidential suite." Her eyebrows rose. For a moment, she looked like she might laugh. "I'm sorry," she said. "Is there a problem?" "The presidential suite costs several $1,000s per night." "I know." Rachel folded her arms. "We require a valid payment method." I stared at her. "I understand." Her tone became sharper. "It's one of our most expensive accommodations." "I know." She sighed. "Perhaps I can show you some lower-priced options." Ava shifted uncomfortably beside me. I could tell she sensed what was happening. Children often notice things adults miss. The issue wasn't the room. The issue was her assumption. Rachel had already decided who I was, and more importantly, who I wasn't. I remained calm. I'd still like the presidential suite. She looked irritated. Sir, are you currently staying with us? No. Do you have a reservation? No. Then I'm afraid it's unavailable. That answer caught my attention, because I knew exactly how many rooms were occupied, including the presidential suite, and it wasn't occupied. Not today. Not tomorrow. Not for the next 3 days. I checked the reservation dashboard that morning. The suite was empty. Unavailable? I asked. That's correct. I nodded slowly. Something wasn't right. A middle-aged couple walked into the lobby. Expensive watches, designer clothing, luxury luggage. Rachel's entire attitude changed instantly. A bright smile appeared. Good morning, she said cheerfully. Welcome to Harborcrest. The contrast was impossible to ignore. The couple hadn't even reached the desk yet, but they received more warmth in 3 seconds than Ava and I had received in 10 minutes. Ava looked at me again. This time, she didn't say anything. She didn't need to. I understood. I turned back toward Rachel. Would you mind checking again? Her smile vanished. Sir, I already told you the suite isn't available. At that exact moment, another employee approached. His name tag read Ethan. He appeared younger and considerably more professional. Everything okay? He asked. Rachel answered before I could, just explaining room availability. Ethan looked at me, then at Ava, then back at Rachel. Let me verify the inventory. Rachel's face tightened. That's not necessary. I'll only take a second. He typed on the computer. A few moments later, confusion crossed his face. The presidential suite appears available. Silence. Rachel immediately frowned. There must be an error. Ethan shook his head. No error. I watched carefully. Now, things were becoming interesting. Rachel leaned toward Ethan and lowered her voice. Unfortunately for her, I could still hear. Look at them. Ethan's expression changed instantly. Not agreement. Shock. What? He asked. Rachel sighed. They obviously can't afford it. The words landed like a stone. Ava lowered her eyes. My jaw tightened. Ethan looked uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. But before he could respond, another voice echoed through the lobby. A voice filled with authority. What's going on here? Every employee froze. The speaker was Daniel Whitmore, the hotel's general manager, and judging by the expression on his face, he had heard more than enough. Daniel Whitmore stepped toward the reception desk. The lobby suddenly became very quiet. Guests nearby slowed down. Several employees exchanged nervous glances. Rachel forced a smile. Good morning, Mr. Whitmore. Daniel didn't smile back. His attention remained fixed on her. I asked a question. Rachel swallowed. We were simply discussing room availability. Daniel looked at Ethan. Is that accurate? Ethan hesitated. For a brief moment, he seemed torn between protecting a co-worker and telling the truth. Then he made his choice. Not exactly. Rachel's eyes widened. Daniel folded his arms. Explain. Ethan took a breath. The presidential suite is available. Daniel nodded. I know. Mr. Bennett requested it. Daniel's expression didn't change. Then what's the issue? Ethan glanced toward Rachel. She immediately looked away. Daniel noticed. His eyes narrowed. The issue, he repeated. Nobody answered. Ava squeezed my hand. I could tell she felt uncomfortable standing in the middle of the growing tension. I gently squeezed her hand back. Everything would be okay. Daniel finally turned toward me. The second he saw my face clearly, recognition flashed across his expression. Then came concern. A lot of concern. Because he understood exactly what the situation meant. Mr. Bennett, he said carefully. Rachel froze. Ethan blinked. The nearby employees looked confused. Rachel looked from Daniel to me and back again. Mr. Bennett. Daniel didn't answer her. Instead, he walked directly toward me. Then something happened that made every employee in the lobby stare. Daniel extended his hand. Good afternoon, sir. I shook it. Afternoon, Daniel. Rachel's face turned pale. The realization was beginning to hit. Not completely, but enough. Daniel looked at Ava. His serious expression softened instantly. And this must be Ava. Ava smiled politely. Hi. It's good to see you again. You too. Now, Rachel looked like she might faint. Her eyes moved rapidly between all of us, trying to understand, trying to process, trying to figure out what she'd missed. The answer was simple. She had judged a book by its cover. Daniel faced the front desk staff. This gentleman is Marcus Bennett. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. A receptionist dropped a pen. Another employee gasped. Daniel continued. Owner of Harbor Crest Hotel. Silence exploded across the lobby. Rachel's mouth literally fell open. For several seconds, she seemed incapable of speaking. When words finally came, they barely formed. Owner? Yes. Her face lost all color. The couple standing nearby stared in disbelief. Several guests exchanged whispers. Rachel looked back at me, then at my clothes, then at Ava, then back at me, as if she still couldn't believe it. I understood why. Many people expected hotel owners to arrive in luxury cars, expensive suits, private security, flashy watches, but I had never been interested in those things. Success wasn't something I needed to advertise. Daniel's voice remained calm. Mr. Bennett visits properties without advance notice. Now Rachel understood, and the panic in her eyes grew even stronger, because she wasn't just rude to a guest. She was rude to the owner. Daniel looked at Ethan. Thank you for verifying the reservation. Ethan nodded. Then Daniel turned back toward Rachel. Would you like to explain why you informed Mr. Bennett that the suite was unavailable? Rachel opened her mouth. Nothing came out. She tried again. I thought. You thought what? The question hung in the air. Rachel looked trapped, because the truth would sound terrible, and any lie would be exposed immediately. I made a mistake. Daniel's expression hardened. No. Rachel froze. That wasn't a mistake. The lobby remained silent. Daniel wasn't raising his voice. He didn't need to. Disappointment carried enough weight. You looked at a guest and made assumptions. Rachel stared at the floor. You judged his appearance. No response. You ignored his request. No response. You treated him differently than other guests. Still nothing. The evidence was impossible to deny. Every guest in the lobby had seen it happen. Every employee had witnessed it. Daniel turned toward me. How would you like to proceed? All eyes shifted to me. This was the moment everyone expected. The dramatic confrontation. The immediate firing. The angry speech. Instead, I looked down at Ava. What do you think? The question surprised everyone, especially Ava. She blinked. Me? Yes. She thought for a moment, then gave an answer that made several adults lower their heads. I think people should be kind before they know who someone is. The lobby became even quieter. Children often see things clearly, without ego, without excuses, without complicated justifications. Just truth. Daniel nodded slowly. Wise advice. Ava shrugged. It's not that hard. A few guests smiled. Even Ethan looked impressed. Rachel seemed close to tears. For the first time, genuine regret appeared on her face. Not fear, not embarrassment. Regret. Perhaps she finally understood what she'd done. I looked at Daniel. Let's continue this conversation privately. Of course. Daniel escorted us toward a conference room near the executive offices. As we walked away, I noticed something interesting. Several employees appeared nervous. Very nervous. More nervous than Rachel. That told me something important. This wasn't an isolated incident. There was a larger problem, and I intended to find it. Inside the conference room, Daniel closed the door. The atmosphere changed immediately. Professional, serious, focused. Daniel sat across from me. I'm sorry, Marcus. I nodded. I know. He rubbed his forehead. This shouldn't have happened. No, it shouldn't. Daniel had managed hotels for nearly 15 years. He understood hospitality better than almost anyone. Treating people with respect wasn't optional. It was the foundation of the business. Without it, everything else failed. The luxury furniture, the expensive rooms, the elegant decor, none of it mattered. People remembered how they were treated. That was the real product. Daniel sighed. I've noticed small warning signs recently. That caught my attention. What kind of signs? He opened a folder. Several documents sat inside. Guest feedback, internal reports, customer surveys, performance reviews. Daniel slid one report toward me. Read this. I scanned the page. A pattern emerged quickly. Complaints about inconsistent service. Comments about favoritism. Reports of guests feeling ignored. Interesting. Very interesting. Because 6 months earlier, those complaints barely existed. Something had changed. I turned another page. Then another. The pattern became impossible to ignore. Certain guests received exceptional treatment. Others received average treatment. And a few received poor treatment. The determining factor wasn't behavior. It wasn't loyalty. It wasn't reservation status. It appeared to be perception, appearance, assumptions, bias. Exactly what happened in the lobby. Ava colored quietly at the table while Daniel and I reviewed the reports. Eventually, she looked up. Dad. Yes. Can I ask something? Of course. Why would people do that? The room grew silent. It was a simple question, yet not an easy one. I considered my answer carefully. Sometimes people think they can tell someone's story just by looking at them. Ava frowned. But that's impossible. I smiled. You're right. Daniel nodded. Very right. Ava returned to coloring. Meanwhile, I kept reading. Then one report stopped me cold. A guest complaint from 3 weeks earlier. A family had claimed they were repeatedly overlooked by staff. Ignored at check-in. Ignored in the restaurant. Ignored when requesting assistance. The details sounded painfully familiar. And then I noticed something else. The complaint had never been escalated. Someone buried it. That changed everything. Because now this wasn't just poor judgment. It suggested a cultural issue. A deeper problem. One that could damage everything we had built. Daniel looked at me carefully. What are you thinking? I leaned back. Someone created an environment where this behavior became acceptable. Daniel nodded slowly. I was afraid you'd say that. The truth was becoming clear. Rachel wasn't the entire problem. She was a symptom. And somewhere inside Harbor Crest Hotel, the real cause was still hiding in plain sight. I stared at the complaint report for several more seconds. The deeper I looked, the clearer the pattern became. Someone inside Harbor Crest had been quietly encouraging employees to judge guests based on appearances. Not directly, not officially, but through attitude, through expectations, through example. And culture always starts at the top. I closed the folder. Who oversees front desk operations now? Daniel's expression darkened. Assistant Operations Director, Trevor Collins. I remember the name. Trevor had joined the company 8 months earlier. His resume was impressive. Luxury resorts, high-end private clubs, elite hospitality groups. On paper, he looked like an excellent hire. But paper doesn't reveal character. I stood. Let's talk to Trevor. Daniel nodded immediately. Ava grabbed her backpack and followed us. As we walked through the executive corridor, employees stepped aside respectfully. Word had already spread. Everyone knew something significant was happening. We entered the operations office. Trevor sat behind a large desk, reviewing reports. He looked up. The confidence on his face lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then he noticed me, and Daniel, and the serious expressions both of us wore. Mr. Bennett, Trevor said. I nodded. Trevor. He stood. Quickly. What can I do for you? I placed a complaint folder on his desk. You can explain this. Trevor glanced down. His confidence slipped slightly. I need more context. 3 weeks ago, I tapped the report. A family complained about poor treatment. Trevor scanned the document. I vaguely remember it. Why wasn't it escalated? His eyes shifted, just briefly. But I noticed. Daniel noticed too. It didn't seem serious. I stared at him. The complaint described repeated neglect. Multiple incidents. Several staff members involved. That wasn't minor. Trevor continued speaking. We receive complaints all the time. Not like this. His jaw tightened. For the first time, he looked uncomfortable. I leaned forward. Trevor, I want the truth. The room fell silent. Then something unexpected happened. Ava spoke. Why don't grown-ups just tell the truth right away? Nobody answered immediately, because there wasn't a good answer. Trevor cleared his throat. I may have exercised poor judgment. There it was. Not the full truth, but enough to open the door. I looked directly into his eyes. What instructions have you been giving staff? His expression changed. Just enough. A warning sign. I don't understand. Yes, you do. Daniel folded his arms. Answer the question. Trevor exhaled slowly. Then the truth began to emerge. Not all at once. Piece by piece. Like a crack spreading across glass. He explained how he encouraged employees to focus on what he called premium guest experiences. That sounded harmless. Until he explained how those guests were identified. Designer clothing, luxury luggage, expensive accessories, visible wealth. My stomach tightened. Because I already knew where this was going. Trevor continued. We want to prioritize guests most likely to spend money. Daniel stared at him in disbelief. You instructed employees to judge people by appearance? Not exactly. That's exactly what you did. Trevor had no response. The silence confirmed everything. Over the previous months, he had slowly shaped employee behavior, not through written policies, not through official procedures, but through repeated suggestions, comments, hints, encouragement. Employees learned quickly. Some followed his lead. Others stayed silent. And, eventually, treating people differently became normal. The realization was infuriating. Not because of what happened to me, because of what happened to countless guests. People who trusted us. People who deserved better. I looked toward the window. The city sparkled beneath the bright afternoon sun. Years of hard work had built Harbor Crest. I wasn't about to let anyone poison its culture. I turned back to Trevor. You're terminated effective immediately. His face drained of color. Mr. Bennett. No. His mouth closed. There are no excuses. Trevor looked toward Daniel for support. None came. Daniel's disappointment was obvious. You failed our guests, Daniel said. You failed our employees. Trevor lowered his head. Security escorted him from the building 20 minutes later. But the situation wasn't over. Not even close. Because leadership means fixing problems, not just removing them. That afternoon, I called an emergency staff meeting. Every available employee gathered in the ballroom. Front desk workers, housekeeping staff, managers, restaurant teams, maintenance crews. More than 200 people filled the room. Many looked nervous. Some looked confused. Others looked ashamed. I stepped onto the stage. Ava stood beside me. The room became silent. For a moment, I simply looked around. These people represented the heart of Harbor Crest, the soul of the hotel. The culture would become whatever they collectively accepted, and that needed to change. Today, I was denied a room in my own hotel. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Many employees hadn't heard the full story yet. I wasn't denied because the room was unavailable. The room grew quieter. I was denied because someone assumed I didn't belong. Several heads lowered. I continued. When I bought Harbor Crest, this building wasn't successful. Everyone listened carefully. We rebuilt it together. I pointed around the ballroom, not because of luxury furniture, not because of expensive suites, not because of fancy marketing. I paused. We succeeded because people felt welcome. The employees nodded. They knew it was true. Hospitality isn't about buildings. It's about people. It's easy to be kind to someone wearing a $1,000 suit. The room remained silent. It's easy to smile at someone arriving in a luxury car. Several employees shifted uncomfortably. The real test is how you treat everyone else. Now nobody looked away, because everyone understood. Every word, every lesson, every implication. I glanced toward Ava. She smiled encouragingly. Then I looked back at the staff. A guest should never have to prove their worth before receiving respect. The room erupted into applause. Not because they were happy, because they knew it was true. The applause lasted nearly 30 seconds. When it ended, I made an announcement, Effective immediately, Harbor Crest would launch a new hospitality initiative. Every employee would receive advanced customer service training. Performance reviews would focus heavily on guest treatment. Anonymous audits would occur regularly, and every employee, regardless of position, would be expected to uphold one simple standard: treat everyone with dignity. No exceptions, no assumptions, no shortcuts. The meeting ended with a standing ovation, but the most meaningful moment came afterward. Rachel approached me. She looked nervous, very nervous. Her eyes were red. It was obvious she'd been crying. "Mr. Bennett?" I turned. "Yes." She swallowed hard. "I'm sorry." The apology sounded genuine, not rehearsed, not forced, genuine. "I know." Tears formed in her eyes. "I embarrassed your daughter." That hit harder than anything else she'd done, because she was right. Ava had seen everything. Rachel looked toward her. "I'm sorry, Ava." Ava smiled softly. "It's okay." Rachel shook her head. "No, it isn't." The honesty surprised me. For the first time, she wasn't making excuses. She wasn't defending herself. She was accepting responsibility. And that matters. People make mistakes. What defines them is what happens next. Rachel took a deep breath. "I want to do better." I studied her face. The regret was real. The lesson had landed. Sometimes consequences create growth. Sometimes they don't. But this felt different. After discussing the situation with Daniel and Human Resources, we made a decision. Rachel would receive a final warning and mandatory retraining. Not because her behavior was acceptable. It wasn't. But because accountability and growth can exist together. The following months brought major changes. Guest satisfaction scores increased dramatically. Service complaints dropped. Employee morale improved. The culture slowly healed. And one afternoon, 6 months later, something happened that proved the transformation was real. A father and young son entered the hotel, wearing worn clothing after a long road trip. Before they even reached the desk, Rachel greeted them warmly, offered refreshments, answered questions, treated them exactly as she would any VIP guest. No assumptions, no judgment, just kindness. I happened to witness the entire interaction. Rachel never saw me watching, which made it even more meaningful. Because character is revealed when nobody thinks they're being evaluated. Ava stood beside me. She smiled. She learned. I smiled too. Yes, people can change. I looked across the lobby. Families checking in. Business travelers arriving. Employees helping guests. Everyone treated with equal respect. "Yes," I said, "they can." Ava slipped her hand into mine. Together we watched the lobby buzz with life. The same bright daylight filled the room. The same hotel. The same people. Yet everything felt different, because Harbor Crest had remembered the lesson that mattered most. You never know someone's story. You never know their struggles. You never know their achievements. And you never know whether the person standing quietly in front of you might own the entire building. But that shouldn't matter, because respect isn't something people earn with money. It's something every person deserves the moment they walk through the door.